is that every particular ingredient in this room is important and they matter. So I also believe that even if people have different abilities, they're able to express themselves, they're able to share out ideas. And I also think it's very important for us to get to know the challenges we go through and the problems we face at large. So we know that Uganda has a country, has a constitution, and of which even with a constitution, there are acts that support persons with different abilities. And they are also able to implement the rights of these particular individuals. They have a right to education, they have a right to freedom of expression, they also have rights to good quality health, meaning they're able to access good quality services within health institutions. For the young ones still going to school, they're able to access quality education. But also you notice that there are different challenges that happen within society at large. We realize that maybe in certain institutions at school, we do not have many experienced or trained personnel like the teachers know how to deal with different abilities. And also maybe the infrastructure of the school itself is not maybe favorable for this particular individuals. However much our country has tried its very best to ensure that this particular individuals are supported, because we realize that they have members of parliament supporting them, representing them, even others with that, even with the local level, maybe the district or the community at large, they have representatives. But I also think it goes beyond that, because this particular people have been pressing a lot, because I feel like there is also unequal job access, like job opportunities. There are certain jobs or there are certain people with different abilities that really have the potential to do certain things and they're knowledgeable about it. But because of the situation they are in, you realize that at times they are considered to be vulnerable, and if they can do beyond that personal appearance, that's a very big issue. And that draws us to a question 5 that I'm going to be asking Ms. Ina. So Ms. Ina, I know you are prominently within society, you've done a lot of things. You've experienced a lot of things, you've engaged with people with different abilities, especially the young people. You've gotten to know their challenges, everything they go through, and what disturbs them. But before we really dive into the process itself, I think it's very important to just tell us more what challenges, what core issues you think this person, this young person with different abilities go through.
Thank you so much, Doreen. True. I personally am a disabled woman, and being a disabled person, I have taken it as an opportunity for me to share the same language with other different persons. And when we meet, you find that we share a lot. And when you look at the Constitution of Uganda, Act Clause 20, 2006, it prohibits discrimination amidst the community. You find that in the community there, disabled persons, many people say different abilities, but we want to say disabled because in one way or another, they can or they cannot do something like any other person can do. You find that they discriminate them. A case at hand in 2025, that was around October, we went to hand a case in Tubu, whereby one of the crippled persons was locked in the house. Actually, has been, we call them padlocks because they are the ones who are kept at home. The ones supposed to be home keepers. And this one, when he would also keep complaining, he was locked in the house, fell sick, and empty passport. We came to know about it when he had already died. So when we went there, when we interviewed, we found that the person has already died. It was too late. But nonetheless, we created an awareness that this is not good for you to discriminate us. We all have equal rights. I can do what you can do. At times I can do what you cannot even do. Now, when we try to eliminate discrimination, we find that another challenge comes in, that stigma in the persons with disabilities. They try to send them away and isolate them. They are not allowed, especially like you can find like when George talks from here that in our African setting, when someone has a child who is disabled, and you ask, Dina, how many children do you have? that person will comfortably say, I have 5 children, 3 girls, 2 boys, and 1 disabled, meaning, and 1. He or she is only counting on their 5. And the disabled is stigmatized, taken away, they don't value it. So you find that the Constitution of Uganda is trying as much as possible to help us fight stigma as well in Uganda. Then also when you go to the job sectors, I personally have missed a job. By profession, I'm a social worker. By profession, with a very good grade. But every time I also apply for these jobs, I've been lowered myself and come back to a mere cleaner. But they still deny you a job just because you're disabled. Someone can tell you, how about when it comes to these things, you cannot, like reading, they say one eye cannot read. We understand. And yet the Constitution of Uganda provides 10% of jobs for the disabled persons. We understand. Regardless of which type of disability. So when we look at that, this provokes me to come out and speak for people with different abilities, looking at a number of challenges that they undergo. You find that they even have, the government itself also have no enforcement. By the fact that they have these policies on ground, the enforcement is a little bit poor. And we are trying to say, please let the government come in, let the stakeholders and other NGOs come in to help us talk on our behalf where we cannot. I guess I stand right now. Let's talk of this PDM that my sister Colette has just said. We applied for PDM, but the first priority is always given to the able-bodied persons, claiming that these persons with different abilities, when they get this money, they will not misuse it, or they will not be in position to achieve. Not knowing that the brain that is to have, they have children at home, they have families to take care of, but they are put aside. So the government should help us in enforcing these policies. Then also I look at this stigma and the inadequate funding for, how do you call it, helping targets. Like at school, talk about school, we have children who are schooled, and you find that when these children go to school or go to health centers, someone is on a wheelchair, but there is no ramp. If I was to be serious here, honestly, if I had a team that I moved with, I was going to tell these people, if they cannot put a ramp here, then they are making us miss the boat. Anyone on a wheelchair cannot enter through this door. Do you understand? And it's a right to a person with a disability on a wheelchair to access this training. But without a wheelchair, that person will crawl. Assuming this place is dirty, that person must be dirty. I need to wait to attend anything. So there should be a ramp. Like my sister who is on crutches, climbing these steps is a little bit difficult. She needs a rampy door. So we have tried as much as possible and moved through the government facilities and see that they put around the ramps for the people to access. Talk of interpreters, like those who use sign language. In our own schools, it's a challenge. In health centers, it's a challenge. In a health center, there is no interpreter. In a school, there is no interpreter. In a health center, we have special beds for deliveries that disabled mothers are supposed to use. But you find that they are not there. And if the government says these policies are there, so the enforcement now comes in that it's not as strong as far, it's low. And now you find again with these ones like the blind, they only tell that, okay, if that one is blind, we cannot have him or her here. Let her go to where? To Madira. If not Madira, goes to Mora, deaf unit. Do you understand that? But looking at the condition of the caretaker of the parent down there, he or she may not be in position to afford the fees there. And yet the child is willing to go to school. But if the government came in and helped us put up at least a few, because these are not many. They could be in a school, they could be 1 or 2. If they help us put in like this kind of things, right, our people would access knowledge. I have a strong belief that our persons with different abilities have a brain. Once given, they have skills. I mean, it starts here. I have my brother here who is a very good pot maker. I mean, it starts here. But the question is, after making the pots, where does it take them? If it's not the local market. And yet the pots, all these arts, this, how do we call it, these small pots for flowers, those things, they can be sold somewhere and we can access them. But because he's not getting that chance to express his skills, he ends up burying them down in the community there, whereby the community does not appreciate it. Now, when I look at it, the key areas I feel that any other person, any stakeholder, NGOs should come in and help us handle them is under education. Right from primary section up to tertiary section. Please, let's join hands and we'll see how best can we help these persons with disability. Then also when it comes to employment, the 10% should be affected because they are, you go with your papers, they look at you crippled, they send you away. I got disgusted in the previous 2021 elections when Soroti district was electing a speaker. Someone used it as a language and I don't feel comfortable, but let me mention it. Ended up saying, if you gave the seat of the speaker to a crippled person, no, it was LOC5, these current elections. If you gave the seat of a LOC5 to a crippled person, how will he or she move around the district doing monitoring and so forth? I felt like it was an insult to me. And indeed, it led to the failure of this potential candidate. And yet the person who was really aspiring for this seat had the best brain, if I can say, because has led Soroti district for speakership for 2 terms and taken up. So I felt bad when this opponent was using it as a tool to fight him, meaning he was insulted. That's already a discrimination or a stigma somewhere. And now, when it comes to the health care, I feel the health care, we should really take notes of this. Help see how best can these persons get better health as well. They are always in, I know of a place where like, if a crippled mother was taken there up to now to give back, they tell you to give back because you cannot climb up. If you don't go for C-section, they tell you to lie down because you cannot climb on the bed. And when I come to realize of this, it becomes too painful for a crippled mother. We all know how that is. Those who have ever pushed babies, you know the story, all lying down and pushing from down, that the place where everyone is passing, and yet you're supposed to lie on a bed, and you're told to lie down. It's really something that is painful. At times you can push, but because you have also refused to lie down, they push you for a C-section. A C-section now. You can imagine those challenges. So that's under health. And now I say accessibility. Allow these people access whatever belongs to them. They are human beings like anyone else. Any disabled person is a human being and has got a right to attain anything in this Uganda of ours. And then now, I would like to say, we see how we can close up these loopholes in feedbacks. Like now we have raised these issues, these challenges. How can we see how to bridge these communication gaps? At times you can raise an issue out, and after discussing it, you find that perhaps from in front there the answer is yes. And by the time the answer is reaching somebody down in the community, it's a no. Meaning that answer came back right, it died in the middle there. So can we see how best we can bridge this gap between the community, person with a disability, and someone ahead who is willing to help that person? I think those are the things I can talk about right now.
Miss Priscilla, there are different rights within a country, whereby every person deserves the right to testify their status and everything about them. But realize that even if these rights are there in existence, it's very hard to be respected, or even at times it becomes very hard for the government itself to implement them. So maybe you maybe tell us what the problems could be and maybe how it can solve them.
Good afternoon, everyone. All of us we know rights, human rights. Personally, problems that people face are different. If you check on people with disabilities, the problems that they face are mainly in education. People don't mind about them. Then you come to about, we are speaking about health. A right to health, a right to education, a right to school. They don't mind about them. If you have to see. And then in the society, they don't mind about rights of people with disabilities. And then another problem that we see people don't chase about these rights, and other people are not even educated on these rights. Other people don't know. If you go deep down to the place, people don't know there are rights. Like now, to ask, people may know only the rights of education, rights of health, rights to food, to worship, but the rest people don't know. If you are to come about politics, people don't know about that, because we know that each person has a right to elect someone of your own. But we think that is there. So to me, if you come to about this question,
Maybe as you still going down, we are talking about the rights, different rights. The question is, the community that we are talking of, do they know about their rights? Do they have the knowledge on the human rights? Do they know what belongs to them and what does not belong to them? Have they ever bothered themselves to find out? At times they go violating these rights, not basically that because they want to violate them, but it's because they don't know that these rights belong to them. For instance, for any person, like I have just mentioned, that it's a right to a disabled person to have a ramp there. My sister may not know that it's her right to pass through a ramp to ease her movement. She will always take like, this is something that's normal, I can pass anywhere. Not knowing a client can knock that step and you fall down. And yet if it was a ramp, she would not knock the client. The client would not knock the ramp. So in most cases, we also tend to violate these rights, these rights not because we intend to do so, but because we have ignorance on the rights. So I think there is need to educate us, even the persons with disability. We need to know which are our rights. What must we do? And if anything, where can we report to? And who is that immediate person who can help me? And that's what I feel that should be done as far as rights are concerned. And after educating them, they should also know after this step, like if my right is violated, where do I report to? Which are the authorities that are there on ground to help me come up with a solution to this violation?